Hi there everybody, it's Martin Twycross here with another video short. So in today's video I want to talk about rituals and practices in mediumship. And most mediums at some stage in their development, in some stage of their career, will have certain rituals they use, some short term, some longer term. But we may find that there's some that don't actually help us, some that restrict us, some we need to let go of. So that's what I'm going to be talking about in this video, so stay with me and I'll get into it in just a moment. Okay, rituals and practices in mediumship. So as I say, most mediums at some stage in their mediumship will have certain rituals and practices that they use to prepare themselves for doing mediumship. Now some of them are very beneficial, some of them are helpful for a limited period of time. They're there for a period whilst we overcome things like our nerves, our anxiety, our fears, boosting us for confidence. And some of the rituals we adopt are a little bit unnecessary and aren't needed and can be let go of quite easily without it affecting our mediumship. So let's look at the benefits of rituals, practices and routines. So some rituals give us confidence. Many people use it because it gives them a sense of confidence, or it moves our mind into the right frame of mind for doing mediumship. It helps get us excited, energized, positive, in that state of mind where we're really looking forward to working. Some rituals help to manage our nerves, help to manage that anxiety we get when we're demonstrating, when we're doing sittings. It helps put us in our comfort zone, a sense of safety and security. But of course there are some rituals which over time begin to limit us, begin to restrict us, begin to hold us back. So let's look at some examples of rituals so you get an understanding of what I'm talking about. So some examples of rituals: you may have specific items of clothing you wear for doing your demonstration that you put on before a demonstration. Maybe certain items are certain colours, your favourite item, your favourite shirt, your favourite blouse, your favourite suit. You may have a certain colour you like to be wearing because you feel it helps your mediumship. You may have a certain specific piece of jewellery, or a certain crystal you like to wear, or a certain lucky charm you like to keep with you when you're going to do a demonstration or sitting. Some people have cleansing rituals where they like to go through cleansing routines, a long bath, maybe a shower where you visualise a white light flowing out the shower head over you, making you a clear, clean channel for spirit. Some people like to listen to a specific piece of music before they work. When they're driving to a demonstration, they listen to music, or when they're doing a sitting, they like to hear it beforehand. Some people will sit for spirit and or attune to the spirit world before working. One student of mine, I know that they told me that they have to sit for 30 minutes before they'll do a sitting. So that's an example of a ritual. I know some mediums like to pace up and down. When they get to the venue, they like to pace up and down. They're like marching up and down. It's like a parade ground, and they're getting into the energy, into the power by marching up and down. Other mediums I know like to rub their hands together and get all excited. And yeah, you'll see them rubbing their hands together and getting excited before they work. Some mediums like to have certain food on the day they're working, or stay away from certain foods on the day they're working, food or drink. No drink, preferably, no alcohol. And I know some mediums don't eat at all before a demonstration because they find that with the nerves and the anxiety of the demonstration, it affects their digestion. I know some mediums who don't work at certain times of the month. They like to work when it's nearing the full moon because they feel the full moon enhances their mediumship. But when it's the new moon, they don't like to work at all because they feel that that's not great. Or when the moon's waning and becoming nearly a new moon, they don't like to work. So they'll only work at a specific time during that lunar cycle. And I know some mediums even who will work by the season. So they like to work in spring, summer and autumn, but they like to have time off in the winter. So those are some examples of rituals. So why do rituals work? Well, let's work with the power of the mind. When we have a belief, that belief over time becomes reality when we focus upon it, when we give it our thoughts, when we give it our attention. What we give our attention to becomes reality. They become self-fulfilling beliefs. Those beliefs become reality. And what tends to happen as well is we seek out evidence to support our belief. Whatever I believe, I start to look for evidence to support it. Whatever you believe, you look for evidence to support it. And we become selective in what we're looking for. We have something called confirmation bias. We we give greater emphasis to the evidence that supports our belief, and we give much less emphasis to the evidence that goes against it. So if I have a belief that wearing the colour red enhances my mediumship, I will, when I'm wearing red and it works, yeah, I'm going to go for that. That's great evidence to support it. But the fact that I may have worn multiple colours in the past and been really good at mediumship, I'm ignoring all that evidence. So you can see that's what's happening. It's a process of what we call confirmation bias. But by adopting the belief and focusing on the belief and holding that belief and giving it your attention, over a period of time, it becomes your reality. The second reason they work is through a process of conditioning, classical conditioning. They become conditioned habits. So the idea is if we repeat something often enough before we work in it, becomes a conditioned habit. And it's like Pavlov's dog. With Pavlov and his dogs, what he did was he presented them with food and they salivated because the food was the trigger for salivation. Then he presented them with food and rang a bell at the same time, and the dog associates the bell with the food. Over time, if you repeat it enough, you get that association formed. You get that link formed. So every time the food and the bell were presented together, we've created a link. So ultimately, at the end, you just ring the bell and the dog salivates thinking, dinner time, dinner time. That conditioning, that link is created. And that's what we call classical conditioning. So if every time I'm going to work, I prepare in a certain way, whatever I do, whatever practice I do, whatever ritual I do, becomes conditioned to me doing mediumship. So every time I do something specifically, every time I start rubbing my hands together and getting excited, that's conditioning for working. Whenever I set foot into a spiritualist church for working, that is setting foot into the venue. Every time I do that, generally I'm working, doing mediumship, apart from the few occasions when I'm not. But generally in another church outside my own home church, it's conditioning. As soon as I walk through the door, I'm moving into the state of mind needed for mediumship through conditioning. So the routine, the ritual, the habit, the practice, it supports our mediumship. And what happens is we begin to wrongly think that it creates good mediumship. We wrongly think we need it for the mediumship, when actually all we've done is create the conditioning to make that happen. So in the short term, it becomes harder for us to stop doing it and walk away from it, let it go, because we've created that conditioning and it feels uncomfortable to do that because of the conditioning process. But longer term, with a bit of effort, we can let it go. We can decondition, a process of deconditioning. We can decondition ourselves from using it. That's why habits work. That's the theory behind why they work. So let's look at some of my own rituals. I'm going to be really honest here and let you know my own rituals. A lot of mediums probably don't tell you this, but we all have them at different stages in our development. And in my very early stages, I remember reading that a certain crystal helped connection. I have an interest in crystals. I used to attend crystal workshops and things, and certain people used to say, certain crystal, that really helps mediumship. So I used to carry it in a pouch. I used to carry it about me when I went to circles in the hope that it would make my mediumship better. I stopped doing it after a while. It didn't really seem to make a difference, to be truthful. So the next thing I moved on to a little bit later on was when I started working platform, I used to wear my granddad's cufflinks, and I always felt a closer connection to my loved ones in spirit when I did it. And it always reminded me why I was doing it, because one of the earliest people who came through a medium was my granddad. My mum and my granddad were the first two contacts I got, a day apart. So wearing the cufflinks always drew me closer to spirit and moved me to the mindset of why I do this work, to give back, to help other people, to give other people what I'd received. And it was a powerful ritual to put those cufflinks on and know I'm working for spirit. Interestingly, one of those cufflinks disappeared and I couldn't wear it anymore. So, it appeared later on, but I think it was almost spirit's way of breaking the habit for me. So for a few years I wore them routinely, but then one of the cufflinks disappeared and I couldn't, so I had to stop. Another item I wore was a ring, specific ring that it was actually shown to me in a meditation, and I went online and found it. It took me a while to find it, but I did. I found a ring matching the exact description with all this inscribed writing within, which had a really profound meaning. So I felt that was a gift from spirit, and I like to wear it to make me feel closer to spirit. Whenever I wore it, I felt that was drawing me closer to my guides and inspirers. So I wore that for quite a while, but some of you will know that I've lost quite a little bit of weight over the last few years. If you've seen some of my videos, you'll know I was a lot heavier. I've lost quite a few stone, and sadly the ring no longer fits. Now, I could get it resized, but I don't. It sits in a cupboard, but it's there still. I have tried wearing specific colour clothes over time, wearing different colours, purples, pinks, reds, you name it, to see if it has an effect. Shirts, ties, what have you. And I don't bother with colours particularly at the moment. I used to have a purple watch, still have a purple watch. I don't wear it anymore though. But I have a purple watch, really beautiful purple watch, really intense purple colour. A lot of people used to comment about the colour, and whenever I wore it, it made me feel close to the spirit world. And for a while, again, it was that ritual, wearing the watch, working for spirit, doing mediumship. But then, of course, I got a fitness tracker, like many people do, and I stopped wearing it. I've had specific songs that I used to play on the way to demonstrations that helped energize me and move me into that state of connection and move my mind into the right mindset. For a while before big demonstrations, I used to play the song I Got a Feeling by the Black Eyed Peas. And, I've got a feeling that tonight's going to be a good night. And that used to quite get my energy going, and it did seem to work, but it probably didn't have any effect whatsoever, really. It's just the confirmation bias, of course, what I was talking about earlier on. So those are all things I used to use, currently don't use. But I'm just using that to illustrate that most mediums actually, if they think about it, have used some forms of rituals in their progress and development to date. I feel that the less reliance we have upon rituals, the more flexible we can be as a medium. So it's good to let go of them if you can. So rituals I still do use, although I know I don't need them. That's the key thing to bear in mind. I do sit before a demonstration or before I do a number of sit-ins in the day. I do sit and attune to the spirit world. I do feel it's respect for spirit to let them know what's taken place, to let them know my thoughts, and to recognize it, to let them know what I'd like, but recognizing that it's always in their hands, that I don't control it, they do. So I like to sit for a few moments before a demonstration or before a few moments before I do sittings. It's not sitting in the power as such, it's just making an attunement, moving my mind, blending with the spirit world, inviting the guides and helpers to be close and just communicating. I like to dress smart for a demonstration. I like to put my suit on, put my shirt on, get dressed, and again it builds that excitement that you're working. It brings you to the sacred nature of the work in that you're getting smart for it. But equally I recognise that on those occasions I've been roped into work when I wasn't expecting it, and I got up in jeans and trainers and a t-shirt and apologised profusely, of course. I wasn't expecting to work, otherwise I'd be a lot smarter than this. But it still worked, so I know it works regardless of whether I'm wearing those things or not. So those are some of my own rituals to show you those examples. Now, problems with rituals. The first one is sometimes rituals can restrict your work. And I'll use the example of the student I mentioned who has to sit for 30 minutes before doing a sitting. Now, if you've got to sit for 30 minutes for spirit before doing a sitting, it's the time that you take for the sitting plus an extra 30 minutes on top. And if you have to do multiple sittings in a day, that's really going to take a lot more time than if you could do them all back to back. And many churches and centres and colleges and places require you to work back-to-back in sittings, and you don't have the luxury of time between them. It's one person in and then one person out, next one in generally, or you might have a very limited period of time, 10 minutes or so, possibly if you're lucky, between people. But yeah, you don't have the luxury of having that great period of time. So that ritual could restrict your work. The other ritual I spoke about working only during the lunar cycle, only when it's near the full moon. That means that there's probably half of the month that you don't feel comfortable working with, half the month you don't want to work with. Again, it restricts your work. Sometimes another challenge we face is that you cannot do the ritual or the routine. You might be called to work at short notice and you haven't got the time to prepare. You may be called, you're roped in at the 11th hour, the medium hasn't turned up and you're on. You're not wearing your favourite items, you haven't got your lucky charm, you're not wearing your favourite shirt, your favourite shoes, you're not wearing your favourite jewellery. You've not had a chance to listen to your favourite song. Sometimes you may be roped in, there's not the time to sit for spirit beforehand. There's not the time to attune to spirit. Sometimes I go to a demonstration, the traffic's hideous, and I arrive with 5 minutes to spare. I've got no time to sit and attune. I'm just straight in, toilet, on platform, working. And that's the way it is. Sometimes the venue restricts you in what you can do. If you like pacing up and down, the venue may not allow that. So we have a restriction where we cannot do our ritual, our practice, our routine. So sometimes rituals limit us, hold us back, affect us. And as I say, longer term, the more rituals we can let go of, generally the better. It frees us up to work. So how do we let go of rituals? Well, first of all, let's identify the rituals that don't serve you. So think about the rituals that you may do. Think about how they do serve you. Think about the benefits they give you. And think about where they may restrict you. Think about, is it something you could let go of? And if so, how could you get the same benefits without the ritual? If the ritual gives you confidence, how could you get confidence without that ritual? What else could give you confidence? Maybe a bit of positive self-talk, maybe some affirmations within your mind could do the same thing. So yeah, that's one aspect. Second, we can tackle our thinking, we can challenge the beliefs. What is the belief? Where did it come from? What evidence do you have that the belief is true? And more importantly, what evidence do you have that the belief is not true? Tackle that confirmation bias. So let's take, for example, the belief that wearing red empowers me for mediumship. Where did it come from? Well, actually, that was something that was taught to us at a workshop I went to way back in time. And a tutor came along and said, if you wear red, you'll be empowered for mediumship. It will help your mediumship. And for the weeks and months afterwards, all the students turned up wearing red or some red item, and we'd look, are you wearing red? Yeah, they're wearing red. And it became a standing joke. So it was somebody else's belief. How do we know it to be true? Well, we start looking for evidence for it, don't we? And you may have worked once or twice and it worked. Yeah, that's your evidence, but that's your confirmation bias. Think about all the time. What evidence is there that it is not true? Well, I've worked so many times in the past, loads of times. In fact, some of my best work was never wearing red. So I don't need red to work really well. I don't need red to do brilliant mediumship. So let it go. You don't need it. You've just proved it to yourself. Deconditioning, we can decondition these rituals, we can decondition these habits, we can seek to replace what we do with something else. And what you do is you seek to change it in small increments and build bigger and bigger until you let go of it altogether. So you may want to wear a certain piece of jewellery, so let's try a different piece of jewellery. Let's change the piece of jewellery. Say my granddad's cufflinks. Let's wear one cufflink at a time. Let's put the cufflink in my pocket, about my person. Let's leave the cufflink in the car on the way to the dem. Let's just handle the cufflink before I go to the dem and then leave it at home. Then let's just forget about it altogether. You can see I'm slowly going through a process of deconditioning myself from needing that. That's what we're seeking to do with deconditioning. Or you could just, third approach, go cold turkey. Just go without it. Work without the habit, the ritual, the practice, and see what happens. If you can work reasonably well, you don't need it. If it works, you don't need it. We can let go of it. So there's some things we can do to let go of rituals. So recognize that I'm not saying that all rituals are bad. Some rituals help us. Some rituals serve us at different times in our development. Some we gain great benefit from, but some are not needed. Some can become a hindrance or a barrier or limit us with our development. So if you can find rituals you don't need and you can let go of, that's great, wonderful. If you wish to retain those rituals, great. But the more rituals you can let go of, the better you'll be as a medium, the easier it will be for you to work as a medium. So that's my thoughts on rituals. I do hope that you found this video of benefit. I do hope that it will help you in some way. As always, if you found it beneficial, do hit the like button, leave me a comment. If you like the videos that I produce, do subscribe to the channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell to receive notification of my videos. Also, if you like my teaching, do check out the other products I have, the other courses I offer available. I put links to them in the description below, also in the comments. But I look forward to seeing you in the next video.